Cheng finally arrived in Thailand and his uncle welcomed him and decided to take Cheng to Brother Shu's place. He advised him not to look for trouble as he was traveling on his own. The two of them reached a food stand and ordered some food when some thugs arrived at the stall owner and started hitting on her, and when Cheng tried to help, his uncle advised him to stay out of it. Just then, a kid brought some hot dumplings and one of the thugs gave it a taste. He then gave it to his friends as well but refused to pay the kid. Moving forward hit the kid, resulting in him running away, crying. A stranger then asked the situation and decided to take the thugs on. Eventually they ran away and Cheng finally met him and went to his house where the boys introduced themselves and took him inside the house. Chow also appeared and brought tea for Cheng and his uncle. Cheng introduced himself, accepting the tea, and Chow sat nearby as well but started getting bored when his uncle began talking to the other boys. He then started looking at Chow and joking with her while his uncle informed Shu that he was finding work for Cheng. Shu reassured that he had already talked to a factory owner and he would be meeting with Cheng tomorrow. The next day, all the boys were working at the ice factory and Cheng's uncle advised him to not talk much and answer whatever the manager asked. The boys then greeted Cheng and offered to take him to meet the manager, while the manager gave his son an important task, and after receiving the briefcase he left. Shu and Cheng arrived at the manager's office, and just by taking a look at Cheng, the manager agreed to hire him and asked him to start working. On their way back, they ran into Auntie Ma, who was crying her eyes out, and when Shu asked her about what happened, she replied that old Ma had been gambling and because of that, they lost everything. Shu went inside to take a look and noticed some men gambling where he found old Ma as well and exposed the cheating techniques the other guys were using. Shu stopped old Ma from confronting the other men and took him out, making thugs notice and follow them. Outside, Shu advised old Ma to stop gambling and handed over $200, asking him to pay back when he got the money. Old Ma and Auntie Ma then headed home, but the thug decided to follow them as well. Afterward, Shu told Cheng that the work was hard, but the pay was not that bad either, and he might even be able to start a small business after saving up for 5 years. Suddenly, the thugs called their names and Shu asked Cheng to step back as the troublemakers were arriving. They told Shu to not run away and that he was a nuisance to them, and he decided to take them all on his own. As expected, Shu fought all 6 of them at once without getting overwhelmed, and even Cheng knocked out 2 of the thugs to make things easier for Shu. Eventually, the thugs ran away, and Shu complimented Cheng for being good at martial arts, but he then showed Shu a necklace that his mother gave to him, asking Cheng to stop fighting. The next morning, all the boys got up early for work, while Cheng's uncle mentioned how he was afraid that Cheng might follow Shu into trouble. However, Cheng reassured him that with mother's token, he would be fighting, making his uncle say his goodbyes and leave. Meanwhile, Chow was washing clothes by the riverside, where another man started to hit on her and tried to be forceful with her, but luckily, Cheng arrived and Chow ran to him, making the man leave. Afterward, Cheng arrived at the factory, and the boys asked him to report to the foreman before starting his work. Cheng then introduced himself to the foreman, but he seemed to be quite rude and told Cheng to get to work, and started scolding Cheng without even giving him anything to work with. After Cheng asked about the work he would be doing, the foreman ordered him to help the other guys for the time being. One of the ices that Cheng pushed ended up falling down and revealing a packet of drugs, making one of the workers take the drug packet and run away, while another worker punched Cheng in the face for breaking the ice. This made Shu and the others gather and confront him for hitting Cheng, but the foreman then ordered everyone to get back to work, and Shu advised Cheng to forget about it. He took a look at his locket and continued his work when the foreman then rang the gong, notifying the workers about break time. The workers who discovered the drug packet were stopped by the foreman, who told them that the managers wished to meet them. On the other hand, Cho brought food for all the boys, and Shu noticed how the other 2 boys weren't back, and when they arrived at the manager's office, the manager offered them $2,000 for all the hard work. He then mentioned the thing they found in the ice and mentioned that they were drugs, further informing them that it was a profitable business and how he would cut them in as they had already found out about it. However, they wanted to stay away from things that could be considered illegal and refused to take the money he was offering, and thankfully, the manager didn't force them, but requested the workers to keep their mouths shut, and they agreed. After placing his trust in the workers, the manager let them leave, signaling his men, who came out and eliminated the 2 of them. Afterward, They took the bodies to the factory where they cut them in half and eventually got rid of them, removing all the traces of murder. The next day, Shu asked the factory workers about those men, and seeing that they didn't know, he asked the foreman, but he refused to answer as well, and Shu decided to talk to the manager. Shu told the manager that Xian and Yu didn't return and added the fact that he had called him last night, resulting in the manager making an excuse that the boss had asked for them but wasn't aware of the reason. However, Shu didn't believe him and mentioned how old Wang also disappeared 2 months ago, but the manager dodged the question and ordered Shu to return to work. Following that, the workers asked Shu about the situation, and he informed them of everything and decided to go to the boss's house if they didn't return soon. On the other hand, the boss was watching his men fight his son who was owning those guys but got bored seeing them getting their asses handed to them and decided to fight those men on his own. The fight began and he started beating those men even more ruthlessly than his son did, advising his son to be like him as his son was pretty slow and left himself open. Then the boss and his son sat together to discuss some stuff, when he told the boss about a pretty educated girl that he could bring for him, but wanted $2,000 in return, which his father didn't really appreciate, but agreed to giving him the money, and a worker informed the boss about 2 men who came to see him. The boss decided to meet them outside and walked away with his son, while the other worker called Shu inside the house and took him to the room where the boss was present. Shu informed the boss about the missing workers and how they were called to his house, and the boss agreed, telling Shu that he wanted to reward Xian and Yu for their hard work and that he would be promoting them as well. However, he acted as if he didn't know the details and told Shu that he had already informed the police about their disappearance. Shu mentioned that the same thing happened with old Wang, and he hadn't returned for a month now, but the boss argued that it was not his fault, but Shu replied that things might be more complicated than they seemed to be. He then got up and advised Shu to mind his own business and work hard so he could be rewarded as well, and seeing how Shu was still arguing, the boss asked him not to meddle and said he'd make him rich. Shu figured that the boss did something and told him to hand those 2 over or he would report him to the police, but the boss told him that it didn't matter as Shu had no evidence. In the end, Shu left after saying that he would report the boss for murder, and as soon as they left the house, a couple of men started heading towards Shu and surrounded him from all directions. Meanwhile, Cheng was present in his room, wondering why Shu hadn't returned yet, and started walking around in an anxious state. He went outside just to find the others as worried as him and advised everyone to sleep as it was midnight, making the other workers eventually close the main door and get back inside, deciding to wait till tomorrow. This whole situation made Cho break down, and Cheng reassured her that Shu would be okay and there was no need to cry, and with that being said, everyone went to sleep, and the next morning, Chow checked Shu's room and saw everyone worried as he had still not returned, making Kun ask Cheng to check for Shu at the shop he often played chess at, and the other worker to go to the gambling den and check if something seemed suspicious. Finally, he asked one last worker to go to Old Mez's place and ask them for help, advising Chow to stay inside and report if anything happened. Meanwhile, Cheng ran to the chess shop and asked the owner about Shu, but finding out that he hadn't shown up there, he then asked the food stall girl, but she didn't seem to know about him either. Eventually, Cheng ran to the factory and asked the workers about Shu, but they didn't know either and told Cheng that all his friends were still waiting for him. Cheng then went to them, and one of the workers told Cheng that the manager was calling the boss to ask for updates. Soon after, the manager returned and told everyone that he had called the boss, who told him that Shu had arrived at his place and left safely, adding the fact that the police were looking into it. The workers didn't buy the bullshit at all, and the manager told them that the workers were unpredictable as they gambled all the time, and maybe he had already gone to Bangkok, making the workers argue that Shu didn't gamble and was their leader. Eventually, the workers started protesting, asking the manager to hand Shu over, and when he tried to calm down the situation, it didn't work as the workers kept on pressuring him. In the end, the manager ordered everyone to return to work and walked away, making the foreman intervene and ask everyone to return to work, but they didn't listen, forcing him to walk towards the workers and start hitting them. Cheng got angry as well, but he grabbed his locket and calmed himself down.
喂，老板，闹事情了，老板，拿起就跟我打。
Everyone started praising Cheng, but then he noticed that his mother's locket was broken, and out of nowhere, the manager arrived and called Cheng to his room along with his other 3 men. The workers figured that the manager would cause trouble and decided to follow Cheng, waiting outside the manager's room while Cheng went inside. They'd all patiently waited outside, wondering what they might be talking about, and just then, one of those men exited the room and pasted a paper on the factory wall. They'd all went to check out the paper and realized that Cheng had been promoted to a foreman, while the previous foreman had been demoted to 3rd class, making them talk about how he deserved it and congratulated Cheng for the promotion. At home, Chow was picking up dried clothes when she noticed the arrival of Cheng along with others who began to march along with Chow until they stopped and Chow asked the reason they all seemed to be this happy. They informed her about how Cheng was promoted, making her happy as well, and asked the reason behind his promotion. This made them inform Chow about the fight and how Cheng took care of all the enemies, saving the factory workers, and while telling Chow the reason behind the fight, they all remembered Shu's disappearance, making all of them sad once again. Cho began crying and Cheng reassured her that he would talk to the manager tomorrow, but the manager said that he had already reported it to the police and even agreed to come to the station if Shu didn't return today. Back at home, Cho made food for everyone and Ah-kun told everyone to wait for Cheng, who had gone to the station. Unexpectedly, the manager took Cheng to an expensive restaurant instead and told him that the chief was his good friend and that they'd do everything to find Shu. Suddenly, some girls arrived in the room and joined them for lunch, making the manager introduce the girls to Cheng as they all began to drink. One of the girls poured some drink for Cheng as well, and the manager complimented him for being a good drinker. And with that being said, they all began to eat while Ah-kun and the others also began eating. Cheng got really drunk and started messing around and kept on drinking more and more to the point where he started feeling lightheaded and started lunging at the girls, following them around. Meanwhile, Chow was worried about Cheng as he still hadn't returned, but Ah-kun consoled her that everything would be all right. On the other hand, Cheng was sleeping on the bed, and the girl he had been following previously took off her clothes and got on top of Cheng, trying to wake him up, and started kissing him all over his face. The next morning, Cheng woke up and noticed a naked girl sleeping next to him, making him instantly get up and leave the hotel in a hurry, only to run into Chow. After the awkward interaction, Cheng runs away, and upon his return, Ah-kun questioned him about his sudden disappearance and mentioned how worried they were. Cheng then informed them that the manager never took him to the police, but asked him to dinner instead, making Ah-kun and the others angry at Cheng as they walked away, disappointed. Cheng, being the foreman, then rang the bell, but no one moved, refusing to work, and when he asked everyone to start working, Ah-kun refused and commented on how one dinner was enough to make Cheng's head all swollen. They started calling him all kinds of things, making Cheng leave and go to the manager, where he asked him about Shu, further mentioning that all the workers were worried, requesting that he would like to see the boss, and the manager agreed to call the boss and make this possible. The boss agreed and told his son, Xiao, about the man coming to see him and how they would have to put up a show. After work, Cheng went to their house and came across a number of dogs sitting on the lawn, and suddenly they'd all started to chase him, but Cheng managed to dodge them and jump to avoid their attacks. One of them eventually bit his hand, and the boss yelled at the dog to not bite, making them sit obediently. Cheng then went to meet up with the boss, who invited him inside the house and took him to the same room where Shu had come to talk to him. The boss was aware of the reason behind Cheng's visit, and just then, one worker accidentally spilled some tea, making the boss throw hot ash on her. He then scolded her, making the worker apologize and walk away, then commented on how he was really sad as Shu's disappearance had cost him a lot too, further mentioning that many people envied his success and had started to attack him. There were many rumors spreading about him, but the boss advised Cheng to ignore them as he treated his workers like his children. The boss kept on beating around the bush, but when Cheng tried to get back on topic, he told Cheng that the police were aware and would eventually find them. Xiao then arrived and told the boss that Shu and the others weren't found, resulting in the boss scolding him for being a good-for-nothing son, telling him to go out again and not come home until he found them. Cheng then decided to take his leave while the boss promised to do everything in his power to find them. After he left, the boss told his workers that even if they got away with it for now, they still needed to take care of the factory and keep an eye on Cheng as he was not a normal guy. Afterward, Xiao told his father about a girl he had found, who started smiling and hoping to see her that night. Meanwhile, Cheng returned to his house, but the workers kept on ignoring him, and not even one of them looked Cheng in the eye, forcing him to sit alone. Fortunately, Xiao arrived and brought some food for Cheng. That made Ah Kun mock Cheng for not eating at the boss's place and mentioned about how the boss must have said the same thing about informing the police and whatnot. Ah Kun didn't give up and kept on mocking Cheng, forcing him to leave the food and walk away, and Xiao questioned Ah Kun about his rude behavior, to which he replied that he hated Cheng. Xiao ended up going after Cheng, while Ah Kun planned to send Cheng away after Shu returned. On the other hand, Xiao told Cheng that Ah Kun was a good man but impulsive, advising Cheng to not get angry at him, and Cheng promised her not to get angry but also mentioned how they didn't understand him. He then went to work, asking Xiao to go home, and at night, Cheng went to the same hotel and walked inside. Unexpectedly, Xiao followed him inside as well, and when Cheng went upstairs, the girl from the other night recognized Cheng and took him inside a room. She then sat next to him and started unbuttoning his shirt, but he stopped her, making her ask about the thing making him unhappy. Cheng replied how some workers had disappeared and there was no news about them, so the girl advised Cheng to take care of himself as his boss was a really tricky person, telling him about how the boss managed to make a fortune and showed Cheng multiple drug marks on her chest. He connected the dots and left immediately, allowing Xiao to enter the room and stab the girl in the chest. At the same time, a couple of men entered Cheng's house and kidnapped Xiao, while Cheng entered the factory and managed to get inside undetected. He then started to search around the whole place, and after breaking a portion of ice, he found the drugs. Additionally, he looked at all the other ice blocks and even found a decapitated head inside one of them, but Xiao and his men arrived soon after, mentioning that he knew about Cheng's plans. He asked Xiao about the things they were up to, but all Xiao cared about was eliminating him. Eventually, Xiao fell and lost the fight, allowing Cheng to return to his house. After changing his clothes, Cheng accidentally slipped due to the blood on the floor, and while following the trail of blood, he noticed one of his roommates lying on the floor. He then visited the other room and found Ah Kun along with the other workers stabbed to their demise. Cheng then tried to call out for Xiao and searched the whole house, noticing the body of the child who used to help her. Following that, Cheng returned to his house and gave Ah Kun a hug, and the next morning, Cheng sat by the riverside, contemplating his mother's words to stay out of trouble, wondering what to do as now he was the one in trouble. As he thought about what might happen to his old mother as he ended up losing his life, Cheng decided to go back home. However, the memories of him living with Xiao and the others flooded his mind, and the thought of taking revenge started entering his mind. With that being said, he made his way to the boss's house and jumped the gate with ease while the boss was asking his workers to find his son, who didn't return last night. Suddenly, they noticed Cheng's arrival, and the boss ordered them to take care of him.
是，滚！哎呦！哎呦！哎呦！哎呀！
工头在那边打架，快逃走吧！快！
Soon after, the police arrived along with Chow, and he woke up, glad to see that Chow was safe and allowed himself to be arrested. Chow gave him one last hug as the police took him away. This was all about our talented foreman. Will the police let the poor guy go? Comment Thailand below if you enjoyed the movie. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.